So let's begin. So building university marketing strategy. I'm really happy today to be welcomed by my colleague Ria. I'm going to ask Ria to come on camera now and to introduce herself. Hello.
Hello, hope you can hear and see me. Thanks, Lorna. Yeah, super excited to be here, everybody. A little bit about me. Yeah, as it says there, I've worked in higher education for about 15 years. So that started at Sussex University a long time ago, where I actually did my degree. And as we all know, as many people do, go and work for the institution that they studied at. So yeah, I followed very much in that suit. My first ever role was working for a school, basically helping run their open days, School of Science and Technology. And then essentially, I suppose, I've worked my way up. So have worked on individual programs, marketing and recruitment, through departments, schools, and then obviously university-wide. So yeah, as it says there, I've worked at 6 different higher education institutes and a real mix. So from some recruiter universities to the OU, where I did their rebrand, and lots in between, and Surrey, where Lorna and I first met. So yeah, I've done definitely walked the boards, I think, on higher education marketing, and I did leave as well. So I did leave for a little bit to go and do grad recruitment and marketing there, and absolutely loved it, learned loads, but missed higher education and came back after about a year or so. But yeah, so obviously now my role is Director of Marketing and Engagement at the Student Room. I've been here, well, 2 days before lockdown is the date that I call on. So yeah, doing a strategy with a new team during change is also interesting. But yeah, really happy to be here with all of you today.
Yeah, awesome. So glad that you're here and glad that you can share your wisdom. So a lot of what I learned about university strategy, I learned from Ria. So you're going to learn so much today. Many of you know me. I recognise lots of names in the list, but yeah, I'm the Education Account Director here at the Student Room. Worked in higher education for a lot less time than Ria, but still enough time to understand the sector and how to put some really good strategies together. And again, as many of you know, I look after a lot of what we do together with universities here. So yeah, hopefully we've had a good experience so far already. And yeah, there's obviously loads of webinars that we've done before, which you can have a look at beforehand. But let's just talk about what we're going to cover today. So a really straightforward kind of set of agenda. So first off, I'm just going to go over the foundations of strategy. This session is really not about giving you tactics or a template or a Word doc for you to go away and complete. It's not really about that. It's really about thinking about new ways to think about strategy as a whole. So you can go away maybe with some fresh ideas. So we'll cover the foundations of strategy and importantly, the difference of a strategy and plan. And of course, the data essentials. Again, any of you that have come along to webinars before know that this is a really big focus for me in particular, but of course it has to be a focus for you as well. So we'll talk about the data essentials in terms of what's available to you and what could be available to you. And then also stakeholders and internal comms. Now, any other sector, I probably wouldn't have this as an entire topic as part of a strategy, but higher education is very unique, which we'll talk about shortly, and stakeholders are essential in ways that no other sector can really experience. We'll finish up with a just a key takeaway summary, so just making sure that we kind of reiterate everything that's most important about what we talked about, and then there's time at the end for a Q&A. So just to say that again, if you want to use the Q&A box, please share us questions there. I can see some questions about recording and the assets available later, so they will be available later, but hopefully you can stay so we can have a really good Q&A at the end. So I think it's just really important to think about why we're here in the first place. So really, we're here because this is a really unique sector, and you know, I hate to say selling, but we're selling a really unique product. Degrees are a really unique product. So why is higher education unique and different from everywhere else? So first off, we're working in a market environment, but in a not-for-profit framework. And so as part of that, there's kind of 2 competing ideologies as part of that. So in marketing, we're really trying to compete with one another, which is not in the mind frame or not in the kind of process of a not-for-profit framework. And so that in itself is really challenging. We're also really at the mercy of politics, despite being a market environment. You know, policies make a massive difference to everything that we do. You know, if we go back to 1999, that's when Labour were like, let's get 50% of 18-year-olds to university. still feeling the effects of that today, and Gavin Williamson referenced it literally this week. So it's, you know, it's not just that maybe taxes up and down, and so we have to pay less or more VAT. There's so much more that impacts what we're doing. The product itself is unlike anything else. It's not like buying a car. It's not like buying a holiday. It's not like buying a chocolate bar. You're buying something that's A, expensive, B, life-changing, and you can only really do it once. So you have this annually evolving audience. You don't have repeat business. Like maybe you get someone on to do a master's and maybe a PhD. We know PhDs are small numbers and don't drive revenue. So it's not, again, it's not like a chocolate bar where you're going to buy them every day, every week. It's not even like a car. You know, cars maybe you buy every 10 years. You don't buy a degree every 10 years. It is really unique in that regard, and there's lots and lots of really big considerations as part of that. And like I said, annually evolving audience in that regard. And also, I think we're competing, again, very different to anywhere else. We're competing locally and globally, particularly in the UK, particularly in a little island with over 150 universities, kind of HEIs, let alone all the other little pockets of colleges and specialist providers in addition to those 150. It's really competitive, and that makes it really challenging. And mentioned this already, but there's just so many stakeholders. So many. You know, years ago I worked with Mondelez, otherwise known as Kraft, who looked after Cadbury. Cadbury is this massive, massive global brand. I had 2 contacts and that was it, and they can make decisions. It's very, very different, isn't it? I can't imagine you guys talking to 2 people and cracking on with a strategy. It's just not going to happen. So really, really unique. And because of all these things, strategy can end up feeling a bit like this. Totally mad, difficult to follow. There's no start or end. And it might look a bit fancy, but it's really difficult to use in real life. So handing over to Ria now to cover the foundations of strategy, to hopefully just rein it all in and give you some focus. Fire away.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's just going through that and seeing that all again on the slide, it makes you realise that we do have to love what we do, because if there would definitely be other sectors that we could work in, it would be a lot easier. So yeah, I think we definitely have to love what we do to keep on doing it. So yes, I think that as Lorna said, we don't have time to go through everything today. It would be far too much to kind of go in and, you know, give a document to take away and kind of fill in. And as we'll talk to a bit later, not really the right approach, because everyone works in a different place, and it's important to kind of think about that. But yeah, so for the start of a 10, you know, what is a strategy versus a plan? There are lots of words used a lot and interchangeably. And strategy and plan is one of those. Sometimes people use strategy, sometimes people use plan, sometimes people use strategic plan, which I'm not entirely sure what the difference between that one is even myself. But yes, I think it's just kind of to cover both, so hopefully you've got it covered. But yeah, I think it's really important to kind of just take a step back now, and let's make it really clear what we're talking about when we say strategy. So as it says here, so yeah, what is strategy? So yeah, as it says there, the decisions about your priorities, and within that, goals, aims and objectives that set the direction for your future actions and tactics. It seems pretty simple when you put it into one sentence like that, but I think it is really, really important to kind of, you know, note that and remind yourself of that, you know, the strategy is the decision about those priorities and to set the direction. The plan is the actions and the tactics that come after that. You can't have a good plan without a good strategy. And you certainly can't have a good plan if there's no strategy at all. And I say that in the fact that I'm sure we all have done plans without strategies, so there's no judgment there. But if we got halfway through that plan and thought, this is a bit, why isn't it getting where I want it to get to? It's probably because you didn't have a good strategy in the first place. There are some amazing marketing theory behind marketing strategies out there, and some great valuable thinkers that I think Lorna and I would definitely kind of in particular Michael Porter and Jim Collins, who, if you have time and are into those sorts of things, definitely go and have a read and have a look at those. I think Michael Porter, I just wanted to spend 30 seconds. I'm absolutely not going to do him service talking about it in great detail, but again, go and read it. I think about 35 years ago, Michael Porter introduced, I suppose, the Porter's generic strategies. So that's obviously named after himself, of course, in 1985. But yeah, and that's at that point kind of described how an organisation gets a competitive advantage. And that, at that point, was broken down to 3/3/4. I'm not going to go to 3/4, read on it to understand that. But those three things are, low cost, differentiation, and focus. And if we think about universities, we are a little bit limited, as Lorna's mentioned, on all three of those. But I think, if we think about cost, not many HEIs or education institutions are going to have a strategy that's purely based on cost. Absolutely should think about it. Obviously, fees come into play, scholarships and the likes absolutely come into that. But it's not going to be the thing that sets you apart in your strategy. So we have to think about those other two, and that's differentiation and focus. And differentiation is obviously making yourself stand out from a crowd, and a very, very competitive crowd. And focus is where you think about what you have and what you can offer particular segments or groups of segments. And most good university strategies will focus on one of those two, or a variation of both. You can't be everything to everybody, and then stand out from the crowd. That's within limited resource, time, budget, that's not possible. So I wanted to just kind of put that out there, because I think it's really, really good to think about that as we go through. And yeah, absolutely, we can send you links to going and looking at that and think about that. But yeah, hopefully that defines what the difference between strategy and a plan is, as a start of a 10. And then the next thing are objectives, goals, and aims. And I think that probably, at least for the last 5 years, a little bit longer, every team that I've gone in and worked with, whether that be in-house or agency side or as consultant, we've done a session on this, because again, those words are used in completely different ways, interchangeably, all the time. And actually, you could lose a whole afternoon trying to find out the definition of things, because everyone has their own opinion. The important thing is that you agree what they are for yourself, and you stick to those, and therefore they give you the direction that you need within your strategy. So what I define them to be is aim being the long-term purpose. And with the definition of aim, the word itself is that you are looking far, far away at where you need to get to. And that is your aim. And that aim may come from the institution already. You may have the vision for the institution, or particular aims that that you need to get to. But that also could be the aim for your own area, whether that be school, department, programme, whatever you're building a strategy for. So that's aim. It's pretty clear when it's written down like that, I think. The second is objective. Now, we've all done, hopefully, we've done personal development plans along the way, and you would have written your own objectives. So it's exactly the same. These are the tangible things that you're going to do to get to the aim. They're the things that you can hold on to. They're the things that you can, create, and that's your objectives. And then goals is the bit in between. So because the aim is should always be a long-term goal. A long-term goal is a long-term goal, but again, a long-term thing. The goal is the thing that keeps you motivated. It's the thing that helps you know that you're getting, going in the right direction. It's your milestones, essentially. It's the things you can hold to say, okay, the objectives that I've done have worked. So as it says there, it's the outcome of a series of successful objectives. So if we just give ourselves a little bit of step out of HE and really, really simplify this. So an aim is that I want to play the piano, as an example. So an objective for that, I'm going to say this is probably going to name, it says about 10, but there we are. The objective, first few objectives, buy a piano. I don't own one right now, so that's probably going to help, or at least find somewhere I can go and play on a piano, and get some lessons. There's some objectives, pretty tangible. And then the goal is, so the first goal is perhaps to play happy birthday to my niece on her birthday in September. I know that's a long term. I'm not playing the piano at that point. I'm certainly not a master in any way, but that's where I'm getting to. I suppose if we give ourselves an in-sector example, so get more postgraduate students is an aim, and that could be an aim, given to many of us along the way, and obviously you could think of lots of variations of that. But yeah, an aim is to get more postgraduate students. That's long term, and that could be in the last 3 to 5 years or what have you. The objectives could be for you, these measurable things, to create a new virtual event, for example, create new content, collateral, all of those things, even review and edit what you already have as well. It might not be new and shiny as well, and I think that's really important to think about that as objectives. And then the goals would be, get X amount of sign-ups for those events, get X amounts of leads within X amount of weeks for those events, or leads around the content and collateral. So hopefully that gives you a bit of a something you can hold on to, kind of understanding the difference between those things. If your strategy just has that in it, and then you can start building a plan, that's pretty good. That's not too bad, as a first attempt to have those three things. And quite often strategies won't have those things, or clearly anyway. So yeah, that's a good start for 10. And I suppose that leads on very well to kind of the next slide of making sure that you keep it simple. Lorna and I are going to giggle at this because this is something that we've both spoken about before. But yeah, I think that very, very often when we create a strategy, we absolutely overcomplicate it. And that could be for lots of reasons, personal reasons, individual reasons, as well as where the climate and where we're working, things like that. But really importantly, don't feel like you've got to reinvent the wheel. Nor do you have to feel like you have to create war and peace in your strategy. A strategy needs to be simple because you need people to understand it, you need to understand it, and you need people to engage in it, which we'll come back to a little bit later. We don't want something that's so amazing that you're going to have it laminated and bound, and you're so proud of it, but it's epic, and therefore it's probably just going to sit in a desk folder somewhere and never be looked at. That's not what strategy is about. So make sure you keep it simple. Make sure that you look and use existing resources that are out there, and use templates. So go out there, ask people that you work with, what do they have? What strategies have they worked with previously? There's kind of three, in my mind, there's three good reasons for doing that. So first is that you can learn loads from others. And you can improve on what's already out there as well. So that's a good starter. It also gives you a head start. You're not starting from scratch, and therefore you'll feel more confident on kind of what you're doing and not questioning yourself as you go through it. But also, and I think most importantly, is that you can understand the expectation of the institution and those around you. So what I mean by that is that if somewhere I used to work, this is a great way of explaining it, I think. Somewhere I used to work kept saying, oh, create a one-pager. And I didn't understand. I kept going, what do they mean by a one-pager? Thinking it was, yellow paper or something. And then so I finally asked somebody and they said, oh, it's just a document, a Word document, just one page. And I'd been creating, vast documents because where I'd been working previously, that's how we worked. So it's really important to have a look at what's out there so that you are fitting into the style of what people are used to digesting and engaging with. Otherwise, you might have something great that people just don't work with. So yeah, that's kind of, keep it simple and learn from others would be definitely some advice there.
I think just to add to kind of the keeping it simple thing, reflecting on my own experience, I think it gets complicated when I lose confidence in myself. If I'm desperate to over-explain and over-prove that I've done my due diligence, that's when it gets really, really complicated. And actually, I think thinking about maybe my first university marketing strategy, it was like maybe 39 pages, but it could be summed up on probably two pages. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really easy to want to go above and beyond because you need that confidence, but it's not necessary, I guess is.
Yeah, and I think that you can have your appendices, you can have even your documents that sit elsewhere. That is you've heard me say it's your toolkit. That's the thing that gives you the confidence because you've got those things to refer back to, but they don't need to be in your strategy because you're the one that needs those, not necessarily everyone else. Yeah, that's a good point, Lorna. I think that so the next thing is I don't think that we would be doing. Well, I think we'd be doing a disservice to today if we didn't mention the elephant in the room, and that's obviously COVID. And that is essentially, as it says there, that sometimes things don't go to plan, but your strategy can still help you. And I think that's really important to, I don't think anyone here, myself included, would have ever written a strategy that had a pandemic due to come in March time. You know, no one planned for that, no one saw that coming, and no one would have had a strategy that was, you know, had that risk all sorted out. But that doesn't mean that you throw, you know, get your strategy and throw it in the bin. Absolutely not. What you do is, at those times, is that you go back to your strategy and you look at it and you go, okay, what is our aim? My objectives might have changed. You know, they might need tweaking, things like that, but my aim's still the same. You know, that's still the end goal. There might be some new things brought into that, but that is still where you need to get to. You know, and a great example of that, of those that have had a strategy, you know, to more brand awareness with their audience and really grow that. Those that had a digital first strategy are doing probably all right at the moment. Absolutely, those that perhaps, you know, less think of those things might be, you know, more effective this year. So, you know, it's a really, really great way of kind of going, okay, wait a minute, you know, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going to. So yeah, absolutely, you know, make sure that you go back to those strategies in those times, times like this, and you know, remember that it may take you longer to get there because of COVID and those sorts of things and other things that may come up, but a strategy is absolutely when you need these things to go back to. So yeah, I think it's we can't plan for the inevitable, but it doesn't mean it's going to change where you need to get to, I suppose, is the point there, definitely.
Very true. Yeah, and I think again, going back to the point about kind of complexity versus simplicity, it'd be really easy for us to be like, oh well, you know, now anything could happen. We need to plan to, you know, we need to have a strategy that accounts for every single eventuality. And that isn't the case. I think, like Ria said, just making sure that you have something that's robust that you can refer back to again and again and again, that gives you the flexibility to pivot when you need to, is going to set you up for the future really, really well. So these are the kind of foundations of strategy and kind of giving you an approach and focus. But really, there's just three things to make sure you remember really easily. So first off, a strategy is not a plan. You do not have to provide a strategy that has, you know, a whole year's worth of exactly what you're going to do, when, where, which tool, which platform, which bus stop. You don't have to provide that. The strategy is just about making decisions that will take you to the future and that will then inform the rest of your actions and plan. So yeah, remember, it's a strategy, not a plan. Secondly, keep it super simple. I guess this kind of is in two ways. So firstly, you can keep it simple with just making sure you provide aims, objectives, and goals. Remembering that an aim is a long-term view, an objective is something that's tangible and measurable, and a goal are the markers that that will get you there as you go along. But keeping it simple will help you as well as everybody else to make sure you all understand exactly what's going on. And then finally, stay focused. So like we said, you can't be everything to everybody. And, you know, COVID came along and, you know, Ria said no one could have planned for it. I did actually read a wonky article that was from about 5 years ago where someone had written about a pandemic, which was kind of crazy. And I was like, oh my God, is this person literally a genius? But you can't do that. You cannot plan for every single eventuality. When Ria and I worked at Surrey, there was a meningitis outbreak. There'll be things that impact your university every single year that may wobble things, but ultimately, again, if you just have a really clear strategy and a really clear set of aims, you're going to be absolutely fine, and just kind of stick to that. I think the point about being everything to everyone as well, I think really, really applies to university marketing in particular because of the stakeholder piece. And thinking about, kind of again referring back to Henry Porter and the point of difference. Now, you may have a portfolio with 4 faculties, 12 schools, like 3,000 academics. You cannot provide enormous support for every single one of those people. What you can do, you can recognize where your heroes are, you can recognize where you need the most help. So it's about staying focused in that way. You can't be everything to everybody. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the data essentials. Got a big old drum that I'm banging. You've all heard me talk about it a lot, but thinking about it in relation to strategy is just very slightly different. So first off, now this is a table, the known unknowns. So this table basically shows you kind of the breadth of your knowledge. So first off, you've got the things that you know. Really simple. You know where your campus is. You know what courses you do, etc. there are also kind of the known unknowns where like maybe you know that you don't know about it. So personally, I do not really understand the great details of anything that's taught in a mathematics department. Just not good at it. But the academic stuff, that's fine. There's also stuff that you don't actually know that you know, stuff that maybe feels so obvious that you forget that you're aware of it. And then finally, the stuff that is really difficult to influence is the stuff that we don't even know that we don't know. And we can kind of ignore that box. But ultimately, when it comes to making those decisions for the future in terms of where your focus should be and what your aim should be, it's really important to have that awareness of what you do know already, but also the places that the areas of data or the areas of information that you don't know, but you do want to find out and that feel important for you. Which we'll come on to shortly, but I also just want to touch upon the fact that it's kind of something slightly different. And again, this relates to the stakeholder piece, which is that there is stuff that you know, that you think everybody knows, and actually almost nobody does. I do think, speaking to you guys, I can see loads of names in here. I know that you know your university better than almost anybody. And I think marketing is a really unique place, marketing, recruitment, anybody that works in kind of central services in this way. We do know the university incredibly well. We know the portfolio as a whole. We know the cohort size. We know how many applications we need to get to fill every single course. We also, because we do open days, we know all of the ground stuff. We know everything that gets in, all of the risk assessment stuff that you have to think about. There's so much that we know. It's really easy to forget that everyone doesn't know the same stuff that you know. And so that, I think, almost comes back to that simplicity thing, which is, and the kind of confidence to, state the obvious and also ask the obvious questions. There's no harm in that at all. And so this is a combination of knowing what you know and don't know, but also having an understanding and awareness of what your colleagues around you do and don't know. Really, really important to have an awareness of that, because also it enables you to pitch your information in the right way, and also enables you to gather your information from your stakeholders and colleagues in the right way as well. But let's just talk now about the stuff that we know we need to know. So there's a whole load of places that we can get information. So first off, there's loads of information that you already have internally, or that you have access to internally in your university, which costs time but not really money. So first off, there's existing data from the past, and past data is really important, but it is not everything. So first off, in terms of past data, you've got previous cycle data. So if you look back at last year, the year before that, what are the trends that you're seeing in your own data? Which courses are seeing highs and lows, and what's impacting that? But also previous campaign performance. As marketers, as recruiters, there's lots of things we do at different times of the year, and we try different things every year. So what's worked really well for you and what hasn't worked, and why? I think we could have a whole nother session about measuring success, particularly for digital campaigns. And if we go back 5 years, clicks was everything. Now, clicks now is a health check. It's not everything, because there's so much that we know. We know what Generation Alpha and Gen Z, they are not clickers, but they are open to being influenced. They are easy to influence in lots of ways in that regard, but clicks cannot be it, as an example. And then also there's stuff that you don't know yet, but you can get, and that's almost thinking about the future and thinking about the whys. So previous cycle data and previous campaign performance is the what that happened. And then things like focus groups and surveys, thinking about the future, is actually more, gives you more of an ability to understand the whys about maybe what that data is telling you. So all that stuff is what you've got internally. Is there anything else I've missed internally there?
I think I would just say that, I suppose reference again that, I love, and one of the reasons I love HG marketing is the circular nature of it. So, that you can go around each time and look what happened before and learn from that. And, you touched on that. But also, I think that focus groups and things like that, reach out internally, reach out to other departments who also will have surveys and, Delhi data, what was formerly, destination levers, and also those institutions, not all, but some institutions obviously will do reports on, your decliner surveys, and they are so valuable. Why didn't they come to you at the end, and those sorts of things. So, reach out to those that have been with you, not been with you, as well, and kind of do insight. And I think it's that layering that makes such a difference there, of kind of looking at that data with those surveys and focus groups is really important.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, certainly. Kind of to add to this, then absolutely asking other colleagues and decline surveys 100%. Cool. So obviously that's all internal. We've also got absolutely buckets of external data. So first off, there's loads of free stuff. HESA, amazing. I love HESA. Everything's on there. It's so great. I've probably spent way too much time on there just having a look at all their tables. But HESA data is really interesting. It helps you understand where you are in the market. Of course, there's stuff internally that's going to help you with that as well. Certainly look at HESA. There's loads of sector publications. Loads of the marketing agencies that we work with, I'm sure you guys work with, Have Access and Rest Education Cube, Natives, all do some really, and many others that I haven't named them, but they all do some really, really fantastic sector publications where they've done their own research and they've made it available for free. Fantastic. Have a little look out there, contact them, see what they can share with you that will help inform what you're doing. And also just Google's your friend. Have a little Google around, see what's out there. We do insight projects and insight work. We've recently done a couple of series of navigating changing options, looking at years 12 and 13 and how COVID's impacted them. And if you just have a little Google, you'll find things. You'll find things 100%. All those bits are free. And then the not free things, obviously you can commission research and insight. So this will be around, not your own, not everyone in your CRM, not your own students, not your past students, not your applicants. These are people that you want to get to. And so you can commission that research, and obviously that comes at a cost. But also there's existing reports out there that you can just purchase, a little bit like maybe some of the HESA stuff, UCAS, Data AT. We also have existing reports that you can buy. So again, it's balancing those things. And I think, again, this goes back to that kind of simplicity piece and not being everything to everybody. It's because there's so much information out there, it can be really easy to get drowned by it a little bit. But again, going back to kind of your aims and objectives, this can really help. And also it's worth saying, as part of potentially part of your objectives, one of your objectives in your strategy can be about trying to understand more about a specific audience. So you don't have to do this commissioned research and insight to feed into your strategy, but perhaps you could do it as part of your strategy, as kind of more of a tactical piece. But yeah, there's loads of information out there, and you can spend hours looking at it. But again, try to keep yourself focused for sure. Cool. Speaking of external, I think it's just worth talking a bit about looking outside the sector. It is really, really easy, again, to get sucked into just HE. I think Ria mentioned earlier that she'd left HE to go elsewhere and see what the rest of the world does. I actually started my career outside of HE and in private sector FMCG work, so it's been really helpful to kind of blend those two things together. But looking outside the sector can be really valuable to give you some more inspiration. So first off, just things like reports about the audience group we're after, whether that's postgrad or undergrad, Gen Z. Now, those reports about the audience group may not relate to higher education or education or even their future, but understanding the way this audience tick, particularly when you're not it, we're all, not to assume anyone's age, but none of us are Gen Z, really. And so it's really difficult to understand their experiences and what's really making them tick. So understanding about the audience is going to be really, really powerful for you. Secondly, I kind of mentioned a little bit about this before in terms of how you can track performance, but staying up to date with tools and technology that relates to marketing is really, really important. And again, this is not higher education specific. This is about understanding programmatic. 5 years ago, programmatic felt brand new and it felt really scary. And now, of course, we're all doing it. If you could keep up to date and keep ahead of the competition so that you understand these things, it's really powerful. One thing that, hopefully you're aware of is that, basically cookies are dying out. Apple's killing it. And in a few years, it's going to be pretty much banned across the board. So once cookies have died out, how are you going to, how will programmatic work? How can you do your own retargeting off your own website? It's going to be really challenging. So you need to stay up to date with tools and technology that relate to exactly what you're doing. And also, I think this is just, for me, this is just a fun thing as part of being a marketer, which is just being really aware of the marketing and advertising around you. My phone is full of screenshots of ads that I've seen that I really like, or back pre-COVID, being on the tube, just seeing stuff out and about. My team know, like Microsoft Teams now, they get a thing from me every single day where I've seen a great ad from one of their universities, probably from one of you, that I've seen on TSO, and I'm like, this is amazing, and just sharing stuff that I love. And to do that, I think partly it keeps your own enthusiasm going, it keeps you inspired, and it's just really good to have a finger on the pulse of what else is out there. I mean, also the John Lewis Christmas advert, I just love it every single year. Wait for it. It's an important part of my life. Is there anything else on there, Ria, that you'd add in terms of looking outside of the sector? Sorry, put you on the spot there.
No, that's fine. That's fine. No, I absolutely agree. I think that if you have a passion for it, you want to see it. But I think also look outside the sector, and also just look at things that perhaps, even things that you wouldn't necessarily know that your budgets would allow for. Even that itself doesn't mean that you're going to replicate that, cinema ad or, or whatever it may be. But you will learn so much from that. And I think that I go back to doing something around kind of emotive content, which absolutely came from looking at, advertising that was doing some amazing stuff around emotive, that has absolutely come into HE. But took a long time for it to come into HE. Awareness is another great example of that higher education took quite a long time, and still not there in some institutions, of understanding the importance of awareness marketing and advertising around that and those sorts of things. So yeah, absolutely. I think don't assume that just because your budget is X that you can't learn from amazing things that are happening out there. So yeah, LinkedIn is also amazing for people sharing stuff and looking at stuff. And again, like around COVID, there was some great advertising going out there, and probably pretty cheap, particularly out of home stuff. But yeah, so I think it keeps you engaged, and also again, it you have something else to bring into that conversation that helps build your confidence when you've kind of got that as well. So yeah, definitely learn from outside sector, 100%.
Absolutely. I think this is a good point probably to share some examples of things that we've seen that outside the sector and also kind of inside the sector that are really powerful. So first up, Spotify. I just love this. So I'm a massive Spotify user myself. My husband's really into Apple Music, which I think he's completely wrong about. Spotify are amazing because firstly, I think for many of us, music is a really big part of our identity. And certainly for Gen Z, absolutely true. And so Spotify have basically used the data and used their understanding of people's personalities through music to tell us about ourselves. But also, they've memed it up. Memes are the language of Gen Z and young millennials. And also the generation coming through. Memes are life. I mean, I can't state that more highly. Memes are life for Gen Z. And Spotify have been really clever here. They've used their understanding about people and identity through music. They have used the knowledge about meme culture. And also, they've still kept it aspirational. It's in which people want to be both a morning person, but people still want to be really fun. And it's really, it's just a lovely, again, this is an emotive ad. It tells you a little bit about yourself, particularly if you chime with it. There's a whole series, I'm sure we've all seen these in different ways, comparing 2019 to 1989, comparing different, parents and kids, also pointing out individual users for their strange playlist choices. These are the kind of things that whilst data and people and businesses understanding too much about ourselves could feel scary, Spotify's done it in such a way that teaches us about ourselves and it's not scary, it's really fun. So that's a big tick for me. That's quite cool. I think also, universities, we know a lot about students. We know a lot. What can we take from what we know about them to help these students understand more about themselves? Voxy is another one. Again, they've used loads of humor and they've connected their product directly to what Gen Z want. Gen Z want endless social media, and that's what they're giving them. And then there's a bizarre, grotesque humor through this that chimes and works really, really well for the audience they're talking to, which is basically 16 to 19-year-olds. Kids going off to university. This campaign, the Thumbs campaign, absolutely smashed it out of the park for them in every single way. We did a big project with them as well at the student room, and yeah, I kind of love it in that I know it's not for me, and I don't want to buy the product because it's not for me, but I really get it, which is cute. And finally, I want to give a shout out to a university which I don't think anyone is on the call from Kiel, but I'm sure we've all seen this ad from Kiel. I love it. It's so clever. And if you didn't know what the reference was, it still works really well. So this ad this was last year. It did the rounds on social media. It was all over LinkedIn, of course. Also, like you can see it here at some lovely bus stops. Nobody's perfect. They have been, number one for overall student satisfaction for almost 5 years in a row. Just, love for flipping them to the post. Kiel directly compete with Loughborough in terms of location and many of the course areas there. And I think it's really clever for them to be like, hey guys, we're actually really good. You think Loughborough's amazing, but we're really good. Now, this relates to outside sector because this was the original. So this is Porsche's 1984, 1983 Le Mans results, but this is a 1984 campaign. So they were saying, not everyone's perfect, but we were like 9 out of 10 top places. Really clever. You can see there, and I think what's interesting is, whilst I said that buying a degree or choosing to go to university and investing in that way, it's not like buying anything else. Big ticket purchase items like Porsche is really that there's clearly an alignment in terms of what goes into making a decision like that. Works really well. I'm sure it worked really well for Kiel. I'd be sold by it for sure if I was that age. So that's just a bit of a kind of a roundup of stuff that we like outside the sector and ways that you can be influenced subtly by external stuff. So let's just kind of recap again about some key takeaways in relation to sourcing data and sourcing information. So first off, don't be afraid to ask obvious questions. This really comes back to knowing what you do and don't know. And you'll work with stakeholders and you'll work with the wider team, whether that's through recruitment, whether that's through your faculty colleagues. Do not be afraid to ask obvious questions, because you've got to keep it simple, and going obvious is key.
I think just to say there as well that as someone who has done consultancy, many times have I gone into an organisation and thought, oh, should I ask that question? That seems really obvious. And then when I have asked it, they've gone, oh, no, we don't know the answer to that. And that really has at some point been very basic stuff that you would just need to know. And that's no judgment on the institution. That's just because when we live it and breathe it and we don't have fresh eyes on something, we just don't sometimes ask those questions. So yeah, I think absolutely, there is no stupid question. Definitely ask those questions to find out if someone knows, but sometimes they might not, and then you can go and find that out and really help the institution.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a quick comment from an attendee. Are you okay to just speak up a bit more, just because I think we're losing you on your mic slightly? Cool. So yeah, exactly like Ria said, not only is it about asking obvious questions, we've got specific, like there's experience. I'm sure you'll all have the same thing there, where you've been like, oh God, can't ask that stupid question. It's not a stupid question. Absolutely ask it. Also then be focused in terms of what you need. We went through lots of different places you can get data, get information that's going to help inform you. But you need to be focused about that. And you also need to give yourself time to really understand it. So you need to give yourself time to find it out and to understand it. And we'll come to time a bit more shortly when we move on to stakeholders. Giving yourself time, and also giving everyone else that's part of the project with you time to digest this stuff. But being focused really helps that, because it means that no one's reading it. Neither you nor anyone else is reading anything that's superfluous to what you're trying to achieve as part of your aims. And then finally, just look outside the sector for inspiration. There's so much you can learn, and I think this is about saying, be really focused and still being like, look at everything. But no, you still can be focused, whether that's looking outside for really successful campaigns creative wise, or whether that's looking out for reports about the audience you're talking to, or aspirations for 22-year-olds. These are all things that might be really applicable for you. So certainly look outside HE. Don't be afraid to do that at all. Okay, so we're on to our last section, and we have not long left, so we'll whiz through this. But I think much of this with what you know already. But stakeholders. There are so many stakeholders. I did a tiny Google, little Google for university governance structure. Complicated, right? This is a lot of people. What's crazy is marketing, comms, and recruitment aren't even in here. This is a university structure and marketing and comms even aren't in here. So God forbid who else is not in here. It's insane. There's so many people that we need to know, and it becomes really, really complex. So again, a little bit like strategy, let's just pare it back a bit.
So yeah, I think that just wanted to, I'm out of time. So yeah, wanted to just go through stakeholders, and yeah, as Lorna mentioned, there are so many. And I, again, a small anecdote. When I first went out of sector, I went to a few interviews, and they were like, "Oh, you don't have HE experience. How could you work in this commercial, complex organisation?" And my answer was, work in HE and understand how many stakeholders and how many people you have to get things through and buy in with before you can proceed. Commercial organisation, you know what you need to do, it's bottom line, and there's normally one or two people to sign off, as Lorna mentioned. So yeah, you have to learn to be a good influencer, even if you've got the best strategy in the world. But I think as part of that, getting your stakeholders on board is absolutely key. And I think this breaks down into three things. Yeah, so who do you need to involve to get the job done? So think about exactly who you need to work with or who you need to get support from to get that buy-in and that trust. That's really important. Who's going to be there with you and help you along the way. Whose opinion matters the most. They can be different, by the way. So sometimes, and we probably all know them, there's a couple of people that you know that's in that meeting that are going to have your back, or you want them to have your back. And they're going to be your advocates. They're going to be the influencers out there. So really think about those. You probably already work with them without thinking about it. So think about it, and make sure that you go and work with them and get involved. And when you do, the last piece there is really think about why you need them to support you and what information they need from you. So often we can sit on a strategy, or we can sit on any piece of work actually, and until we're really happy with it. And then we put it in front of somebody, whoever that may be, and we ask them to add into that at the last minute. Nobody works like that. Everyone needs time to understand and get used to something, but also we need to understand what we want from it. So you should be saying to somebody, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it, this is where I want to get to, this is the information I need from you, and I'm going to give you this time to kind of go away and do that. That's what you should be doing. So don't sit on it, and share it and work with them on it. I think it's very much if you want the meal to taste nicer, sometimes they have to help cook the dinner, and then we all feel proud of it together. I think that's just many times those with children in the room will totally get that. And I think that's really, really important. I know that probably is downplaying stakeholders, but I think it is so often we don't do those things, and then sometimes we can be a bit negative about the stakeholders, and we think, well, why do we think they haven't bought into this? Why do they not know what we're doing? Why don't they trust what we're doing? So absolutely, bring people along that journey with you. And I think that goes alongside stakeholders. Also, those of you that are managing people, bring your team along the way, bring everyone along the way, let them know what you're doing, let them be a part of it as well. Let them, be helping get that data or looking externally and bringing ideas to the table. And also upward management, speak to your management about what you're doing as well, and, bring them along the journey as well, particularly if this is something, that is quite a big thing, that you're trying to progress, and kind of bringing that back to the aim. You need to get that buy-in if you want to achieve X. Oh, sorry, someone just said they couldn't hear me very well, so I hope you heard what I said. But yeah, I suppose going back to bringing it back to the aim. Why do you want to get that buy-in? What do you need from people? And explaining to them, you want to achieve this because the institution wants to achieve that. Quite often, an academic might not understand what you're trying to achieve is, but when you explain it to them, they do understand that you are trying to get to the same aim in very different ways sometimes. And hopefully by working together, we're all going to achieve what we want to do together. So yeah, bring people together and along the journey absolutely is critical within higher education.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again it brings it back to that, thinking about me writing that 39-page strategy and sitting on it for ages and not wanting to share it because I didn't have that confidence. Having the confidence to share it with people early on and also get their buy-in. We talked early on about that information exchange. Obviously everyone, academics are crazy busy, we're all really, really busy, but I think it's also really important for people to feel like they've also inputted as part of that decision making, as well as just I guess I'm thinking about doing the prospectus many years and having 126 people that need to sign various bits of it off. It's not the funnest job, but actually if they're part of that decision making, if they're part of like the kind of the plan early on, where you're like, well, we're really trying to achieve X, Y, and Z. This is what we're aiming for. Then it's much easier for them to be like, oh yeah, this makes total sense. Let's crack on. I'm happy to help. I think also really simply, the kids don't come, none of us get paid. So, you know, to break it down in that way as well makes it very easy. Right, we're running out of time, but it's fine. We have just 2 little bits to go, and we do have some time for a Q&A if you are happy to wait, and if you've got questions, please put them in the Q&A box. With no questions, hopefully it means that we've made complete sense and given you lots of really good ideas. But let's just summarize the key stakeholders piece then. So first off, identify your key influencers and primary stakeholders early on. So that means as you're writing the strategy, you're putting it together, identify them and get them involved early. And that will give you the buy-in and trust from your stakeholders. And that's completely essential to get anything done at university. You really need that buy-in and you really need that trust. And trust may take time, and that's okay. But again, identifying those people early on, bringing them on board early on, getting that buy-in is going to give you that trust, which will help you along the way. And I'm basically repeating myself. Just bring the key stakeholders on the journey with you. Bring them in at the ground floor. And again, it's not everybody. It's about those people you've identified that were really important to you. Bring them in, bring them on the journey with you. And everything will be much, much, much easier. We cannot do anything alone at all. And that's, you know, I'm sure we all know this, but I think it's, again, pointing out the obvious, showing you the obvious. You know this already. It's your experience already. But just make sure you prioritize it. Okay, so let's just summarize everything that we've talked about today. I think we're going to boil it down to five key points that are essential. And Ria, please, you know, chime in if you want to add anything, or just elucidate some key parts of it. So first off, strategy is not a plan. Strategy is not a plan. A strategy is the decisions for where you want your future to be. It's about the decisions that impact your later actions, which inform your plan. That strategy and plan are 2 different things. Which leads really well into keeping it really simple and focused. You know, outline your aims to begin with, and then follow up with your but have that long-term view, and then have your different bits you're going to do that's actionable and measurable, as well as almost, you know, check-in and checkpoints to make sure you're on the way. But as part of that as well, you know, staying simple and focused. Don't be scared to ask obvious questions at all, and don't be afraid to just question what your colleagues know and what you don't know as well. There's no shame. There's no stupid questions. We all want to get to that aim. You know, we want to achieve what we're trying to kind of work towards. Looking outside HE for inspiration, 100%, and just using all the tools at your disposal, all the relevant tools at your disposal. I mean, there's obviously lots out there that it's completely irrelevant. Don't use those bits. Again, stay focused about what you're looking for, but make sure that you are looking in all the right places to inform the data and inform your strategy. And I'm not quite second to last, but identify your key stakeholders. We've just covered this. I'm not gonna wax lyrical about it. But your key influencers and primary stakeholders are really, really essential, and get them on board early on. And that is what's going to give you that buy-in and trust that will help you throughout any other projects that you do, and also any projects that are part of your overall strategy. You need those stakeholders, and those stakeholders are all over the shop. My God, I'm literally like, admissions. You have to have admissions on board with you. You'd have to. We know that.
Yeah. Coffee chats are key. Coffee chats are key for higher education marketing and recruitment. I think just to say that, you know, as we said at the beginning, today we could have gone through a template and absolutely said, you know, do this. Wouldn't have been appropriate because, as I said before, it has to be tailored to your organisation and culture. But why we chose to go through all these things is that you can have the best strategy, and if you have not considered these things and you've not thought about these things, and, you know, brought people on board, not gone too deep, not kept it simple, then it's never going to work. And so often these things are not thought about. People so focus on the actual document and what it looks like and those sorts of things that they forget that the whole purpose of a strategy is to get to the aim. And therefore, if everyone's not on board and you haven't looked externally and you haven't thought of those things, you're never going to get there. Because as the best marketeer in the world, one person does not achieve it. So, you know, you absolutely need those things. And a strategy is, you know, this is the time of year to normally sit back, think, gone as a long time with that, but and that's really important. Strategy is about your thinking time and to really plan where you're going to get to and why you need to get there. And so really give that self the time and bring those people on the journey.
Absolutely. So we've come to the end of the main content and what we wanted to make sure we covered with you. And now we do have some time for a Q&A. If you guys have time. So we've got 3 minutes to go. We haven't actually had any questions in the Q&A, which is aside from one very, very early on, which I answered privately. But do you guys have any questions? Anything you want to know? Anything you felt was missing? Or anything that you would like to be elucidated further? No, amazing. I am just going to quickly reference in. Oh, Danielle, do you have a question? I've got 2 exclamation marks. 1 question. Fire away, Danielle. While Danielle writes her question, I'm just going to. So Nicola asked about the book recommendations. So first off, Michael Porter. So I believe that Katie has shared or Ria has shared the specific book. Michael Porter's written absolutely loads. I think the book that Ria was referencing specifically is Competitive Advantage, Creating Sustaining Performance. Absolutely, but Michael Porter has written a lot. The other one that I'd also really recommend is Jim Collins' Good to Great. Jim Collins also written a lot, but that certainly is, I would describe it as an essential read. Do you have any other recos, Ria?
No, I think those are start of a 10, those, again, otherwise you can get down a rabbit warren a little bit. But yeah, I think they are really strong ones, particularly for HE.
So Danielle's question is really interesting, actually. So Danielle, thank you so much for your question. I am currently working as a support to university team, and I'm looking to further my career in the higher education marketing sector. Do you have any advice? I'm interested in eventually reaching a strategy position. Thanks for the webinar. Very informative. So glad you've enjoyed it. So yeah, any advice about furthering career in the HE marketing sector and that's kind of reaching a strategy position? Ria, what would your advice be?
Yeah, I think that something within higher education, and I think actually if you're in it, you don't necessarily realise the abundance of people that are around you that can support you. You work in a smaller institution, you don't have that. So there will be probably likely mentorship programs, and so absolutely hunt out what's out there, but also knock on people's virtual desks right now and ask questions and say, I'm really interested in this. Are there projects that you're working on that I could find out a bit more about? Again, kind of ask those questions and go and find those people and get that information. Also, let the people that you are working with know that that's what you want, because quite often we sit there and we don't share that, and then you miss opportunities. But let people know that that's what you want, that's where you want to get to, that's your aspiration, that's what you're really interested in, why you're really interested in it, and absolutely pull on the resources that are out there. I've mentored many people throughout my career who have not known what they wanted, and sometimes that's been they've gone elsewhere, and that's fine, that works for me. But absolutely knock on people's doors and ask for help, because people are really willing to support and help people grow. And yeah, we need people like that want to know where they want to go in HE. So yeah, definitely.
100%. I just had two things to that. So the first thing I would add is almost treat your own career like a strategy. Sit down for a couple of hours. You don't have to know the exact job you want, but absolutely spend some time thinking about what it is that you want to achieve as a whole. I did this a couple of years ago, and for me, my big goal, the thing I always want to do, the aim that I'm always trying to achieve, is working in places where I can impact young people. I care so much about education, and for me, the student room is the place I can do it in the largest way. For me, universities didn't completely change my life. So if I revert back and think about how can I make an impact on the largest number of students possible, the student room was the obvious choice, and working with universities in the way that we work is the obvious choice. For me, and then you can kind of break that down into those, like we talked about earlier, you can break that down to objectives. So for me, I wanted to work in the place that gives me the most access. I wanted to be in a role that's in marketing, because again, it's not, I could go and be a teacher, but I've got a class of 30 rather than the amazing huge audience we've got on the student room. So treat your own career like a strategy. And yeah, I think I would also just really echo what Ria says. You can ask for what you want and ask for the help. Everyone is really happy to help, and I'm so grateful for everyone that's helped me in my career as well. Super, super, super useful. Ria very strongly included in that. So Lillian has asked a question in the chat rather than a Q&A. That's totally fine. But Danielle, I really hope that helped answer the question. I'm actually just going to skip forwards to this slide. If you'd like to get in touch, please do feel free to get in touch by email or LinkedIn and come to future webinars. But just one other question. I think in terms of time, a lot of you are staying and listening. Thank you so much. But let's just answer Lillian. So Lillian's looking to work in the HE sector and to continue supporting students. However, I haven't managed to find a role yet, as I don't have much experience in marketing especially. But you found this session useful. Oh, okay, great. No question. Thank you so much, Lillian. I'm so, so glad that you're able to join us and you found it valuable. That's fabulous. Awesome. Oh, Danielle, one more thing I was going to say about strategy position. What I would say about that is that you can influence strategy at any level by having a conversation with the people that might be making those decisions. You don't have to have strategy in your title for you to be involved in strategy. That would be my final one.
I think that's a really good point. And, you know, for those people that have done UCAS fairs for however many years, that kind of goes back to know what you don't know and don't play down, because you are the person that are in front of people all day in, day out, speaking to them. You will have ideas, you will have, you know, things that can help get there. So absolutely share those, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any more questions. So thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for the 20 odd of you that stayed long after the end and listened to those answers. My details are on the screen, so please feel welcome to get in touch if you need anything. Thank you, Ria, so much for joining and for putting so much
for having me.
To delivering something that I also found really, really valuable and useful. And also just say we have 2 more webinars tomorrow. So if you are from a university with a university partner pack, then we have specific official rep training tomorrow morning for clearing specifically. And then I'm also running a session later on for those that don't have a partner pack, just to take some of those nuggets that are less specific about TSR, but engaging with students around clearing. So please, that should just be half an hour. Please join us, and I look forward to seeing you there. Have a great day, everybody, and thanks again, Ria.
Thank you. Cheers, everybody. Bye.
Bye.